This course will focus on the methods teachers can utilize in LanSchool to guide students during project or research time. We'll take you through the steps of limiting websites, limiting applications, and using the testing feature to verify student understanding. Limiting websites is not only a fantastic way to keep students on task, it's also a creative way for teachers to give assignments where students may reference only a few specific websites at a time. Web limiting can be applied to one or more student computers by simply selecting the student thumbnails from the console and clicking the Limit Web button on the toolbar. If no thumbnails are selected, web limiting will be applied to all student computers. When you see this icon, you know web limiting has been enabled. There are 3 different types of web limiting available to you. Blocking all websites, allowing only a specific list of websites, and blocking a specific list of websites. Only one of these types of limiting can be applied at any one time. To define a list of websites that can or cannot be accessed, select the drop-down arrow to the right of the Limit Web icon and select Configure Web Limiting. If you wish to whitelist certain websites or limit access to all websites with the exception of a few, enter those website addresses into the Allowed Websites section. If you only type the domain address of the website, like wikipedia.org, any website on that domain will be accessible. If you define a more specific address, like for instance wikipedia.org/wiki/LanSchool, then only that specific page will be accessible. After web limiting has been enabled, and a student attempts to access a website not on the allowed list, the student's web browser is redirected to a page explaining that the website has been blocked. A list will be displayed showing the websites the student is allowed to go to. Students can click on those links right from this page. If you wish to blacklist certain websites or allow access to all websites with the exception of a few, enter the websites you want to block into the Blocked Websites section. Keep in mind, LanSchool is not meant to replace your district's content filter. This section should be used to steer students away from several specific websites that you may find troublesome, or when working on a certain assignment. For example, if you enter wikipedia.org here, students will be able to research a topic using any website they can find. However, when they attempt to access wikipedia.org, they will be redirected to the LanSchool block page. You can save lists of allowed websites and blocked websites so that you can quickly load different, predefined lists for different groups of students throughout the day. Just use the Save and Load buttons found on the Web Limiting configuration page. To turn off web limiting and allow students unfettered access to the web once again, simply click the Limit Web icon on the toolbar a second time to toggle this feature off. In addition to limiting your students' website access, you can also do the same with applications in Windows and Mac environments. Like before, this is a fantastic way to keep your students on task, while also being a great way to give assignments and limit students to only the applications they need to complete their assignments. App limiting can be applied to one or more student computers by simply selecting the student thumbnails from the console and clicking the Limit Apps button on the toolbar. Just like with web limiting, if no thumbnails are selected, app limiting will be applied to all student computers. When you see this icon, you'll know that app limiting has been enabled. There are 2 different types of app limiting available. You can elect to block all applications except those specified in an allow list, or you can allow all applications except those specified in a block list. To define the list of applications that you wish to block or allow, click the drop-down arrow to the right of the Limit Apps button and select Configure Application Limiting. If you want to limit all apps, except for just a few, you can enter the names of the application executables you wish to allow in the Allowed Applications section. Enter names like Notepad.exe to allow Notepad, and MSPaint.exe to allow Paint. If you don't know the name of the executable, you can run the application on your teacher computer and then click the Add button. A list will appear with all application executables that are currently running on your teacher device. Select the one you want to add to the list and click the Add button. When app limiting is enabled, and a student starts an app not included on the allowed applications list, the app will immediately close, and a pop-up message will inform the student that the app has been blocked. If you'd like to allow all applications except for just a few, enter the name of the app executables you want to block into the Blocked Applications section. You can enter names here like calc.exe to block calculator. You can save both the allowed and blocked app lists so that they can quickly be loaded again later. For example, you could create an allow list for the Microsoft Office suite of applications, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Save that list to a location on your computer. And then load that list again later. There's also a way to quickly add an app to the blocked or allowed list on the fly. This would be used when perhaps you don't know the name of the app the student is running, but you can clearly see the application on the student's thumbnail. To view a list of all running applications on a single student device, right-click on the student's thumbnail in the Teacher Console and click on View Students Running Programs from the drop-down menu. This will show you all apps currently running on the student's device. Simply click an application and add it to the list of allowed or blocked applications. Selecting the Block Now button will immediately close the application on the student's device, but will not add it to either list. To stop limiting which applications students may or may not use, click the Limit Apps button in the toolbar again to toggle this feature off. After your students have finished their research time, you may wish to gauge their understanding of the material they've studied. LanSchool contains a couple different methods to gauge student understanding. In our previous module, we discussed the voting method, which allows you to send a single true, false, or multiple choice question to your students. In addition to this, you also have the option of engaging your students in a full testing experience. These tests can be timed and self-grading, allowing both students and teachers to see the results immediately after finishing the test. Testing is comprised of 3 steps. First, creating the test. Second, delivering that test to the students. The third step is optional and covers our assessment mode, which we'll talk about a little bit later. For now, let's focus on steps 1 and 2. To create a test, click the drop-down arrow to the right of the testing button in the Teacher Console, and then select the Create Test option. This will open the LanSchool Test Builder, which can be used anytime, even when the teacher computer is not connected to the network. We'll create a short math quiz for demonstration purposes. Click the New Test button to create a new test. Each question in the test can be true-false, multiple choice, short answer, or essay. Type the question as you would like students to see it. Then, select the type of question this is. In this example, we'll create a multiple choice question. Next, configure up to 5 options that students can choose from. If you leave any of the options blank, that option will not be available to the students. Place a check mark next to the correct answer and click Save to add this question to the test. You can add up to 100 questions to a single test. To add another question, click the Add Question button. This time, we'll add an image to accompany our question. Click Browse to search your computer for the image file you wish to use. Select the image and click Open. Then, write the question, configure the choices, and select the correct answer. Then click Save. Now, let's add one more question to this test. Let's show you how the short answer questions work. The student will be able to type the answer into a text field. To make these questions self-grading, type all possible answers into the correct answers field and separate the answers with a semicolon. Essay questions are also an option. This will give the student a larger text box to type a longer, free-form response. While those answers are still collected and sent to the teacher, essay answers are not self-grading. Click Save to save this question. Once you've finished adding questions to the test, click the Save Test button. Select a location on your computer to save the test to, give it a name, and click the Save button. Then, close the LanSchool Test Builder. Now that your test is built, you can simply ask the students to take the test. Click the drop-down arrow next to Testing and select Ask Students to Take Test. You can adjust which students receive the test by adding or removing them from the Included list. Even after you start the test, you can deliver it to excluded students by selecting their name and clicking the Add button. To choose the test you wish to deliver, click the Load button and browse to the location of the test we created earlier. Select it and click Open. Before starting your test, you can click the Options button to set additional parameters to your test. From here, you can have the test prompt the user for their name, display the results to the students immediately after taking the test, set a time limit, randomize the order of the test questions for each student, and even force the test to be launched in full screen mode. When you're ready to deliver the test, click the Start button. From this window, the teacher can monitor, in real time, each question the student is on and whether or not they've answered correctly. Click the Show Question Results checkbox to display the percentage of correct answers for each question. In this example, 50% of students answered question 3 incorrectly. Once all students are finished with the test, or the teacher clicks the Stop button to end the test early, you can click the Export button to save the test results in a CSV file. Click Yes to view the folder where the CSV files were exported. You'll see one file for the questions, another for the answers, and a summary file which contains the actual test results. LanSchool uses CSV files as they are a standard format and ready to be integrated into a wide variety of systems. LanSchool also includes an assessment mode. This allows you to place your student devices into a secure, locked mode in order to take an assessment exam. When assessment mode is engaged, you cannot interact with your students through their devices. This would be used to adhere to PARCC testing requirements, where student devices need to be locked down during a test. The assessment mode blocks the students from leaving the test, as well as blocks incoming messages, and prevents students from browsing to unauthorized websites or using unauthorized applications. Technical note: assessment mode is only fully supported by Windows and Mac student devices connected to a Windows or Mac teacher device via the LanSchool connection server. To activate assessment mode, click the down arrow next to the testing button in the toolbar and select Start Assessment Mode. Set the desired time limit for timed tests. For the purposes of demonstration, we'll leave the counter at 30 minutes. You can set your web limiting and application limiting parameters right from this window, and they will be engaged only while assessment mode is active. The web limiting feature in assessment mode has two options. You can block all web browsing, or you can engage a function just like the allowed list we talked about earlier in the web limiting section of this module. Anything you type here will be the only place your students are allowed to browse to. Like before, if you only type the domain address of the website, like pearson.com, any website on that domain will be accessible. If you define a more specific address, like pearson.com/mathtest1, then only that specific page will be accessible. Check this box if you wish to restrict your students' ability to use private browsers. You can also limit your students' access to only certain applications. Perhaps you have a testing application installed on these devices and you only want your students accessing that particular app. Simply click the checkbox and enter the executable of the application in the window provided. You can also limit your students' ability to use USB flash drives and optical drives. Lastly, you can also limit your students' ability to print during the assessment. These settings can be saved to your teacher machine and then loaded at a later time. Click the Save button once you have your parameters set. To load those parameters again, click the Load button and then browse to where you saved the file before. When you're ready to engage the assessment mode, click the Start button. A new window appears which shows the time remaining in the assessment. Notice the icons that appear on the student thumbnail, indicating web limiting, application limiting, print limiting, and flash drive optical drive limiting has been engaged. Assessment mode will automatically end when the timer reaches 0. However, if you need to bring your students out of the assessment mode before the time is up, should they finish early or for any other reason, simply click End Assessment Mode to return to a normal state. This concludes our lesson on setting up project and research time. Thanks very much for watching.